Alright, so what we have here, it's a 06 full-size Range Rover, the L322. This has got the 4.2 supercharged engine. The locations of most of your fluids and your items of interest under the hood are going to be basically the same whether you have the 4.2 supercharged or the 4.4 naturally aspirated. So essentially what we're going to do is start in the back passenger corner where you have the battery box. And you'll find the battery is tucked in there pretty good, and these are a good sized battery. We'll show you a little trick in a little while on how to reposition the hood so that you have easier access to items in the back. Next is going to be your cool box. In here is going to be most of your major modules, your PCM, transmission control module, transfer case module, and this actually has a cooling fan similar to what you have on your PC to keep the box down at a certain temperature. This is actually, in a way, climate controlled to keep the moisture level and condensation and whatnot down from inside the box. Then you have your coolant overflow reservoir with the bleeder cap. This is where you're going to watch your coolant levels. On the side, on this side where I am looking down, there's actually a level stripe on the tank so that you can watch and maintain your coolant level. This is just a crossover tube for your air conditioning. This is your power steering fluid. And you essentially have the same thing. You have a level marker towards the front, but with a flashlight you can actually get a better idea. Always check this with a flashlight and check your level, and it also gives you a better idea on the condition of your fluid. Should the fluid turn a dark color, dark black or whatever, this can be flushed and refreshed with fresh fluid. And you should do it just like any other petroleum-based fluid. It should be done on a regular basis. Your washer fluid with the vent, your air filter box, your oil level dipstick. Now you notice an O-ring on here. These systems have a negative pressure system inside the crankcase to keep the crankcase ventilated. So it's actually important that these O-rings on both the filler cap and the dipstick stay maintained. This is your ABS control module, both the hydraulic and electronic. Your lines. You'll see these two large caps on both sides, which are just simply covers for the top of your air suspension struts. And then in the rear compartment is going to be your brake master cylinder, which also has a level marker on it. So these are all your points that you want to check on a regular basis. You always want to check your fluids so that in case you pick up a leak or something, you have an idea of what you're losing. Now, what we'll do is we'll show you how to access and remove this engine cover. You'll notice that the back quarter of it disappears underneath this panel, and so do the two rear screws that hold it down. This upper plenum, which is part of the heating system and also contains your pollen filter, which on another video will show you how to replace. You can remove this with just simply removing two bolts and this upper weather strip, and we're going to show you how. This simply pulls up and removes right off of a pinch weld. We'll place that to the side. You have two 13mm nuts, one on each side. And we're going to take the nut off. And I always like to put these on a spot where I know I can find them. And you have this basically this locating pin for the top of the strut. It's a good place to set that nut because if you happen to bump into it, it's not going to disappear down into the Netherlands on the underneath the engine. Now with just the two nuts off, you're going to just grab the lip and pull towards yourself. As you lift up and out, you'll see that it opens up the entire back of the engine. Now you have easy access to the two nuts in the rear. You'll find one right here, one right here. They're going to be 10mm. And you take off the two in the rear and the two in the front. You'll also need to remove the oil fill cap because this cover actually is molded underneath it. Alright, just to make on a point, we found that one of the nuts coming out, the nut didn't back off and the stud underneath spun out where it threads into the front of the engine. If you run into that, don't panic. Just take a 10mm wrench, put it on the stud, take your ratchet on the nut, and we'll break that loose. So now we have the nut out, and we'll just take this and thread this back into the top of the motor where it belongs. So, with the cover off, you now get a good look at the top of the engine, your intake tube, your air filter housing, mass airflow sensor. This large pipe, which is basically your intake feed down into the supercharger, is kind of referred to as the Cobra. Kind of see why. Once you see it actually off, you'll notice it has that resemblance, so a lot of guys have nicknamed it the Cobra pipe. Your 2 intercooler manifolds, and then of course all your wiring and plumbing in the back. Now you have fairly easy access. Now, one more thing you can do, you take an upholstery tool like so. What we can do is disconnect the 2 struts that hold the hood up. And on the hood hinge, there are 2 brackets that slide over, and you can literally take the hood and bring it up to almost a full vertical position and then lock it in place with the tab, and we'll show you that. We have a brace, an extra brace that we put here. For the meantime, we'll move out of the way. And usually I like to remove the bottom. If you put the upholstery tool in, it takes a little bit of doing, but they'll pop out. Bring it up and then tuck it in right up underneath the insulation so that it doesn't get in the way. Make sure you hold the hood up, because with the 1 strut, it's not going to be sufficient enough to hold up the weight of this hood. There's 2. Now we just bring this straight up, and you'll see this thin tab right here. We'll swing it out of the way so you get a better view of that. Just a slight tab with a hole in it. I'm just going to swing that down. The hole lines up with this pin that's built into the hinge, and then just let it relax. Now the hood's almost in a full straight up vertical. Your cover and your plenum is out of the way, and this gives you very easy access to the top of the engine. So that's basically our tour. We're going to show you in other videos how to change the different filters and other maintenance items on this, so feel free to look through the other videos for any ideas or any information you need to work on your full-size Range Rover.